So here we are back to the Bulova 360 series AM FM radio. If you recall from my last video, I cleaned this up and inspected it and cleaned the tubes and the tube sockets, and I had a broken tube, and that came in the mail today. So 35C5, this is the audio amplifier output tube. So we're gonna put that back in. If I don't wreck the place first. This was the only broken tube. I didn't test the other tubes. Like I did with the previous Sentinel radio. But we're going to put this tube in. That didn't seem like a good fit. That didn't seem like a good fit at all. That is loose. Maybe because I didn't have it in there. That's a little bit, I don't know. There's a keyway on there, sort of, but it's revolving in circles. But alright, so that's in there. And the one thing I noticed is that, yes, it's an AM FM radio, and the only thing we have is a tuner. I kind of just got this knob on there temporarily. There's a tuner and an on-off volume, but there's, oh no, wait. The case says AM FM on the same knob as the tuner. I'm sorry. The AM FM band select is the same as the on-off volume button, because that's just a tuner and there's no other switches. Is this some kind of, I'm not a radio expert, I just kind of been learning. Is this some kind of continuous band adjustment? And I glued this back together. It's not pretty. I just use Loctite glass glue, which I just think it's barely holding on. But I'm not endeared to this radio. It's really kind of ugly, but in an attractive kind of way. So what I wanted to do is just fire it up without putting it all back in the case. And I normally replace the cords on these old radios, which they say to do, but this one has this fancy connector on it, and while the cord is somewhat crusty, I just don't want to do it right now. I just want to, before I get too deep into this radio, if it works, that's great. If it doesn't work, you can see there's a little receptacle on the back, or a plug on the back of the chassis, and that connects up to it. Let's see if it will actually stay in there without me putting it all back into the radio. Looks like it's in there pretty good. Again, I'm not replacing the cord. Man, I am not the world's finest video producer. We're gonna plug it in. Yeah, that plug has no neutral prong on it. So I'm plugged in, the power strip is off. I got my glass of wine here. Not drinking beer tonight. I figure if I'm gonna go up in flames, I want to feel good doing it, so I just got a little something here to set the mood. So, turns out power's on, the strip. Let's see, make sure nothing's getting shorted in there with the antenna. And what happens when I turn this on? I don't see anything glowing red yet. What is up? I don't see anything glowing. I remember this note on the back. Caution, this set is provided with an interlock to prevent dangerous electrical shock. Do not tamper with service tubes. Remove 2 screws back and then remove cabinet. I wonder if, I don't know what that means. Maybe I just have a bad connection here. I don't see what this interlock is. Uh-oh. I don't see anything there that provides any kind of interlock. Nothing is getting warm. I didn't see any fuses or anything in there. What is this interlock they're talking about? Because it doesn't appear that this thing's even getting voltage. Unless the cord is just shot. Is it possible the cord's just shot, broken somewhere? I mean, the cord is very stiff. I find it hard to believe that screw provides any functionality. In the way of an interlock, because there's nothing under there. I guess I'm gonna have to break out the ohm meter. Something is fishy here. Nothing ever seems to be easy. Let me ruminate on this. So I plugged it in, and I'm going to test where the power comes in. And yeah, I had 115. Oh, I wish I had a better setup here. Yeah, so I got voltage coming in to the board. And I'm seeing this, like, I don't know what that thing is here. Is there some kind of like magnetic interlock in here? Is that what that thing means? Do I have to put this thing back in the case to get power? I mean, that's funny though. Why would power come into the back of the panel? I mean, I could touch that right there and get a shock, so I don't know what the point of their interlock is. I mean, if somebody wants to kill themselves while they're working on a radio, there's a way to do it. Alright, I guess I'm going to have to put this back in the case and see if there's some strange beast in here that's actually providing an interlock, so hold on. So I put the electronics back in the box. I'm going to need a knob or two here to be able to turn this on or off. That doesn't go there. Bottom. And let's just find out if... Turn that on. So what is going on? Well, this is what I was afraid of. Well, you know, it's never as easy as you think it's going to be. It's got tubes, and it's pretty hard to troubleshoot something without all your piece parts, which I do have now. Well, it looks like this job got a little more interesting, because now I'm gonna have to dig into troubleshooting. So I think I might know the issue now that I thought about it a second. So that's, I trace underneath, and this is where the 115 AC comes in on this pin on this tube. and the fact that I can get continuity to this neighboring tube, I think I might have a bad heater element in one of these tubes, because I'm not getting continuity down the line, which would explain why I have AC in and no continuous current for the heaters. So I have some more bad tubes here, which means I have to pull the tubes and either hand inspect them to see which one's bad, or just bring them all to my friend and have them tube tested. So, yep. So I think I have another bad tube here, at least one bad tube. So I guess that's the end of this video for tonight. Sorry. Well, that's an improvement. I don't know what changed, except I checked all the vacuum tubes and the heaters were fine. I reinstalled them all, and now I have heater voltage and glowing tubes and noise. And I also figured out the AM/FM switch. When I put the knobs back on, I realized they have a fancy little setup here where this back switch changes the band and the front switch is the volume. And what I think I'm hearing now is an operating radio that's being dominated by a bad filter cap. That's the classic no radio sound but 60 hertz hum. So it looks like I'm gonna have to think about this capacitor. But yeah, the tubes are warm. Some of them. So that's a good sign. We have an alive radio that I think needs filter capacitors. So let me hunt that down. Didn't do a very good job of salvaging this vintage capacitor cardboard tube, but for historical purposes it will give the ratings, and I can clip those mounting feet off and stuff my new capacitors inside of it. And what I did in preparation to remount these capacitors was I had some pads that came loose, namely there and up there. So what I did was take a little knife and just scrape and expose the copper the best I can, so that when I go to solder in the new capacitors, I'm assured to get a good connection. So I broke these pads off when I was taking out the capacitor, and what I've done is I've taken pieces of copper and recreated the trace by bending and reattaching after I scraped the copper conductor on the board. And what I hope to do Because what I've done here is I've brought the copper conductors back up through where the capacitor used to have tabs, and I'm going to reattach the capacitors in such a way to their appropriate positions. I believe that's the 33 mic and the 250 mics, and then that's the ground in the back. And once I get all the capacitors soldered in, I'm just gonna loosely slip this tube back over, which I couldn't salvage too well, but let's give it a shot. I gave up on this plan. The copper posts I made were too heavy to solder to, and every time I tried to solder the capacitors to them, they would fall off the pads on the bottom. It was a real shit show. So I went and put the capacitors right to the pads. I'm done with trying to make this thing perfectly natural. I plugged it in. I resoldered an antenna that fell off in my madness, and I'm in the mood for this thing to kind of just explode because I'm infuriated. So let's see what happens. Look at that, another radio fixed. The anger paid off. FM.
It would have been absolute mayhem. That doesn't appear to have happened even in the New York Times. We now have our own suite of doorway comparison kit.
You know what's great about restoring an old radio is this is from 1961. This was probably listened to with the Beatles, the Doors, the John F. Kennedy assassination. I mean, I don't know how long this hasn't been working, but AM's not coming in great. But then again, I got the antenna resting right on the tubes. That probably doesn't help. But I don't know. Let me get it back in the case and put the antenna off the electronics and see if it helps. Bulova 360 series AM FM radio. lot of hum here. Well, thank God for cellular data and Wi-Fi, because I think my radio repair days might be over.
Strong, and we'll get through this together. But these are stressful times. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, and know that you are not alone. Visit wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
It's no dynamite for.
A lot of hum. Oh well, we have a functional radio. It may be a piece of crap, but it's operating.
Take much. One little scoop in there.
And that's that.
Within 2 weeks, I noticed a difference in their coat and their behavior. Nasdaq was a 3-year-old thoroughbred, and I only had 8 to 10 weeks to get this horse in shape for the Retired Racehorse Project last year. Dynamite really helped him to relax his muscles, regenerate, rebuild, and stay physically and mentally
That's
fit
funny.
for the job.
Works better when I turn the volume down. Might just need a
Different
little
supplements
extra
that are
love
all
and
gonna
care.
help.
Alright, well, this went from a piece of shit that didn't work at all to this, so we're done.